a problem to her was, it was real dramatic, but she phoned me, see, and within 30 seconds I was round there. I think they're a fantastic idea, the mobile phone. I live on my own. It's ideal for me friends. I use it even for my alarm clock. Another time when I was riding my motorcycle just outside of our town, there's the West Pennine Moors, and I was riding a perfectly nice afternoon, and my chain snapped, and I was in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly the weather changed, and it was marvellous to be able to just pick this electric device out of my pocket and phone the wrecker truck to come out. I could tell them where I was. And pretty recently, a neighbour's car was being broken into, and I was able to phone the police and sort it out. I think that they're a marvellous. I think they really are a marvellous idea. And my friends, and I think texting. I have a couple of friends that live down south. It's great to be able to send a text every now and then. They can send a text to me, or when my parents go abroad, I can keep in touch. I think it's an absolute marvellous invention. And
do you find yourself in any way addicted to it?
I wouldn't know. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't say addicted to it. Like TV, I could live without TV, but I have a radio, and I can't live without that, you see, because that's my thing. No, what it is, it's just one of these modern forms of communication. I mean, I remember my mum and dad in the early 70s getting a normal telephone in the house, and you know how that changed things, how you're able to communicate. And I think communication is a marvellous thing. I think it really is a good idea. And okay, young people. I mean, young people. I just think young people are getting condemned for too many things, because I think if we were all, when I was 16, 17, if phones had been the thing then yeah, I would have probably had one. But they're getting everything. Even last week, I decided to nip out and have a pint down my local, which is like 10-minute walk. Again, this old lady next door, she had a little bit of a problem. I was able to sup up and be there in 5 minutes.
One of my pals. And you just reminded me of it, Andy, and this might make you smile, but it's not meant to be spiteful in any way, all right?
Yeah.
He was sitting outside the pub in the sunshine, and his mobile phone started to ring, so he picked it up, and he fumbled a bit with the button, call receive, and dropped it in his pint.
But, like I say, and can I just make one point as well about that gentleman that was on before about conscription? No way in hell. My grandfather died at 98. He fought in both wars. In World War I, he was a proper military man. And he rarely ever spoke. He was on the Battle of the Somme. He got wounded on Dunkirk. And if he was alive, he would tell that man what war is about. I mean, you or I will never know.
I hope not. I hope we don't.
The thing is, why should... I'll be at the end of the day, why should anybody... I mean, they wouldn't conscript me because I'm too fat and too old for it now, but... Why should today's young people... They don't get a good deal with... I mean, I know loads of you. I've got nephews, nieces, relations, young people I know. They've worked bloody hard at school. They're not lazy. And they're trying to get a simple labouring job and they can't get it. So why should they be sent to a conflict that, as far as I'm concerned, many people in this country would agree with, it's nothing to do with us. I suggest what they do is get all these MPs and Bush and Blair, give them some Comp 6 weeks training, bung them with a machine gun, and send them on the bloody streets and see how they feel like. Put the people who are doing all the talking right in the middle of the conflict, and I think you might see it change.
It's often been said, isn't it, that politicians, the old men who make wars, are never the personnel to go and fight them. It's always 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds that go and do old men's fighting. Pete's called. He's a Manchester United fan, and he's called talkSPORT, and he's very welcome, as welcome as the flowers in May. The number is 08704 20 20 20. We've got a few busy lines at the moment, but we've got room for another 2 or 3. Hello, Pete.
Hello?
Hello, Pete.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
It's about, I want to talk about cars.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, right. With a car, because I was told that when you take your driving test, you're supposed to totally focus on the road, your braking distances, and everything else.
Exactly.
Now, in your car, it's becoming a fairground. I mean, you can smoke a cigarette, and the end of your cigarette could fall on your lap. You've got a mobile phone, whether it's hands-free, it doesn't matter, because even though your hand's not on the steering wheel, you could have a Barney with your wife or whoever, and it could make you erratic. You've got a navigating machine that you look at. I mean, when does it stop? You can get in-car DVD players where you can watch a film. When's it going to stop?
What you've got to do is phone a friend and get them to drive so you can play with all the toys.
Isn't that car? What happened to where you just look at the A to Z and look where you're going, and if you can't find where you're going after a certain time, you pull over and dial for directions. But I just seem to think that it's becoming like a fairground where they're being distracted and it can cause accidents.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Well, I mean, you've got the navigation. I was actually in a taxi, of all things, and he was looking at his navigation, and he was looking where he was going. And I thought, it's like watching a TV, this. And he's looking at it, then he's not, then he's looking at it, and it could cause accidents.
The good thing about that navigation system, though, is that there's no commercial brakes.
Yeah, probably right. But what's going to be next in the cars? When are we going to stop all this?
I don't know.
I'm not anti-smoking, but it is a dangerous thing.
Smoking in a car?
Yeah, definitely. I think it should be totally banned. I don't think ashtrays should be put in cars because people smoke with children in. It doesn't matter in a confined space. But what I'm trying to say is we've gone now from a mobile phone in the car, and you can actually dial for directions, to a tracker now, a navigator that tells you where to go, or shows you where to go.
You should have a look at that BMW, the 5 Series and the 6 and the 7, because they've got a thing called iDrive, and it's just like a computer screen, and instead of a mouse, you've got this little stick that sits between the 2 front seats.
Yeah.
And you have to look down, because not only do you, it's like this knob, so you twist it and then you pull it back, and I thought, I couldn't believe it. There's just a guy I know who got one brand new, and I was looking at it, and I said to him, how can you get away with this? You've got to look down at this little screen, and you've got to twiddle with this knob? And he said, oh, it's perfectly legal. I said, but they just made it illegal to use mobile phones in a car, and you're driving this around. I said, you could run me down, you wouldn't see me.
That's what I'm saying. When does it stop? I mean, it can cause accidents. I mean, it's ridiculous what they can get in cars. I mean, I thought a car was a car to drive, and then you study the roads. How can you study the road? And what's the point in an A to Z map now when you can buy a navigation system? What is the point of having that on your licence?
Don't buy any maps, mate, because I think that's how may redundant. I tell you what we could get, Pete. I think we could all get some good work doing the voiceover bits on navigation systems. Angie's in New Haven. Angie.
I've just discharged from the hospital the day before yesterday.
Oh, well, congratulations.
I'm very puzzled. Oh, nothing too serious, but I was moved wards 3 times in one day. So I had breakfast in one ward, lunch in the next, tea in the next.
Well, don't believe them when they said you won't see something in the world.
And it's a massive hospital, the Royal Victoria in Brighton, and it's got a new part and an old part, and it's probably involved nearly half a mile between the wards I went, and I'm thinking, well, first of all, there's got to be somebody on the phone rearranging these wards, then there's got to be porters rearranging the people, and not to mention the beds being made every time, so new sheets for the laundry every time, plus the nurses haven't got a clue who you are until they've read your notes, so anything going wrong or them getting to know you is a no-no, really. And the other thing that suddenly occurred to me that is every time I get discharged from a ward, that's going on a list. So that's making that hospital look really good about discharging me from wherever. Is that the reason? Or is it just to keep all these staff that are sort of at the end of the wards nowadays, or in one of these big islands in the middle behind all these phones and computers, to keep them in work? And is that what's draining the NHS?
You could be forgiven for thinking that was quite deliberate, couldn't you?
Yeah. I
suspect what's happened, Angie, and I don't know, but you live in the area, that they've had to make the best of what they could possibly do with an old building.
I'm not decrying the nursing staff or the consultants.
I didn't think for a minute you were.
No, and I hear what you're saying, but I do get this awful niggly feeling that the government needs figures, and our hospitals doing this sort of thing to keep their funding from the government, and then the funding's just going on moving people around all their buildings. I just cannot grasp the reason why they did it.
Well, maybe they're fighting MRSA.
Well, surely that's going to increase it.
Oh.
Cross-infection. Water's going on.
That's what I want. That's what I wanted to imply, but I didn't want to say it. But then you named the hospital, so I thought I'd better not. Nice to have you with us, and I do wish you well. Call me again soon, please. Good morning. You're listening to talkSPORT. I'm Mike Allen. It's 08704 20 20 20, and the front page of the Sun. Holiday fiend gives 6 girls HIV. Now, seriously, if that happens. This guy, asylum seeker, bedded scores at a caravan park, and he gave HIV to 6 at least, they're saying. Should there be a separate level of punishment for people to do that? Yeah, I know. It's where's the compassion? I mean, for me, it's not present when we've got that sort of thing going on. On the front page of the Daily Mail, why can't we protest over our dead sons? Families of British soldiers killed in Iraq banned from demonstrating outside Labour conference. Oh, well, they just love it when they can manage it, don't they? It's 08704 20 20 20, and it comes to the Times. Drink limit for young drivers must be reduced. So I say, why don't we remove alcohol from the equation? If you drink, you can't drive. What's not to like about that? Telegraph exposed plans to increase your tax. A secret Big Brother database of every citizen is being compiled in a massive new stealth tax assault. Intimate details of families, homes, income, travel, diet, and even waste disposal will be stored by the government. The data must be used to calculate everything from council tax, national congestion charges, and inheritance tax to penalties for failure to recycle waste. I don't know about this Big Brother's watching you. I suspect Big Brother is part of your family. Hello, Lee, in Boreham Wood. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I tell you what, Lee, the reason I come on just to say that I want to talk to you, but I've got the news coming up, so can you just give me a minute? Because we're paid for this call, okay?
Oh, sure.
Okay, lovely. All sorted out. Nicely, thank you. You're listening to talkSPORT. I'm Mike Allen. We've got, apart from the papers I've already mentioned to you, we've got the remainder of the paper review. We've got plenty of calls from you. We've got plenty of texts and plenty of emails. But if you want to text or email, it's 81089 or all the W's .talksport.net. Barry in Thirsk is going to be up in a moment, and also Lee from Boreham Wood, and William from Newcastle. Do you know, we've had a good time this morning, haven't we, George? You know, I mean, let's face it. With the trousers we're wearing, it's no surprise that success is ours. Okay, we're back with Lee right after the news. You're listening to talkSPORT. After the news, we'll explore even further the outstanding front pages, and The Independent, just to keep you up to speed, has delivered a record of what happened in Lebanon on the front page, abbreviated of course, and it says we were wrong over Lebanon. More about that a little later on. You're listening to talkSPORT. Don't forget at 6 o'clock, Mr. Brazil with a sporting breakfast for men and women who shave.
On 1089 and 1053 AM.
I declare that the person elected
around the world.
We need to build a bridge
around the clock.
What is moral about that?
From the Sky News Centre, talkSPORT on the Hour News.
The top stories from the Sky News Centre at 5.
On 1089 and 1053 AM. talkSPORT.
After a bit of rehearsal, Russell came good. Well done. talkSPORT, good morning. Here we are. What's the day today? It's Thursday. Oh, it's named after the god of war, isn't it? Thor. Thursday. Lee's in Boreham Wood. Hiya, Lee. We're all ready to go here.
Oh, hiya.
What would you like to talk about?
Well, I was bringing up to talk about my views on the current situation with our military, sort of in, you know, Iraq,
in the Middle East,
Afghanistan, and all that. But there's from what you said previously, there's a running theme through some of the stuff you've been talking tonight, and that's about young people. See,
Yeah.
I'm 19 myself, and I recently got formed through about registering to vote. And personally, I don't think it's worth it. And I think a lot of people my age have actually lost that interest in politics because it's always seen as out of your hands. I mean...
Well, if that's true, then by not voting, it's even further beyond your hands, isn't it?
Well, in my area, the last vote, my nan, she got a card through because she does it by post, and I'm in the same area, and there was only one candidate.
One candidate?
One candidate.
You can't have a one-horse race, can you?
Oh, well, that's exactly what I think.
Yeah.
That's why I've very much debated all this. And as someone under now the age of 21, I actually feel quite sort of segregated from people over 21, because it's now, instead of you being 18 and needing ID, it's now, if you look under 21, you have to have ID.
Yeah.
And I think it's sort of in the grand scheme of trying to get younger people to pick up the ID card scheme.
I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just saying I don't think that's going to happen for a bit. I think that...
Oh, I'm not saying it's not going to happen or whatever, but I just believe that if they're sort of going along with all this ID card stuff, if you're under 21, and if anyone thinks you're under 21, you now automatically have to have ID. And the last time I checked, we don't live in America. And as far as I'm aware, it's 18 in the UK to drink, not 21. And I don't see why it's been taken up to 21. And now they're talking, as you've mentioned earlier, about harsher punishment for people under the age of 25. And with all this stuff about ASBOs and everything like that coming up, you know, the younger generation do actually feel quite segregated from the rest of the world,
yes.
Well, the rest of the country, as it were, because they're stereotyped.
I wonder if it's got anything to do with insurance. You know, if you're talking about you've got to be 21 to go into certain venues.
Yeah.
I wonder if their insurance, and I'm thinking about the interior condition, in other words, damage as a result of a fight. I wonder if there's more danger of that happening with people under 21 than 21 and above. Because the insurance company will have drawn up the rules and regulations and said, OK, well, we'll cover you for accidental damage caused by fights and this, that and the other thing, and it's going to be £250,000 this year. And the guy who runs the bar, or the publican, or the brewery, who might have taken out a blanket insurance, said, oh, no, we can't run to that. They said, well, I'll tell you what, if we take it up to 21 and mess about with it, we can do it for 180,000. And I say, right, done, OK, move it on. Could be that, you know?
Yeah, no, I do realise that. It's just, for example, the whole hoodie thing. Like, youths have been sort of, it's become yobbish and all this sort of thing. I mean, I'm not a sort of aggressive person, and I was actually walking down to a bus stop one day, and there was a woman who was sitting there, and, like, I had my hood up, because it was raining, you know, as you do, wear a hood when it's raining, and, I sat down next to her, and she got up and just walked away. And she was giving me the most evil looks. And personally, I wouldn't hurt a fly. But because of all this national press about hoodies being banned in, I think it was a shopping centre somewhere.
Blue Water, wasn't it?
Yeah, Blue Water.
Yeah.
Because of that national press, like now from then on, anyone seen with a hoodie is obviously a yob, or they're going to mug you, or something like that. I mean, I actually try and make a point of, like, stopping and asking people politely, like, just random questions about, like, oh, have you got the time, please, and all this, to try and break this stereotype. Because I feel that the youths are actually being stereotyped through government, and that way they are never going to get people out voting.
Well, I've got to apologise to you, Lee, because I have been seen with one myself.
Oh, I'm not saying, but I mean, it's like, if you're under 21... and you're wearing a hood, and you're wearing a hoodie, or a hooded top of any sort, you're, I mean, through most people's eyes, especially the elderly sort of age group,
but
they see you as a threat, and I reckon it's because of all this national press about this getting banned, all this sort of stuff.
I suspect that 70-80% of it is down to that simply, but it's also true to say that when you see certain areas, bunches of kids hanging around, and they've got hoods up, and there's no reason for them to, then you can't help but think they've got some strategy in mind, and maybe you, as a spectator at that point, might well become the focus of their attention, and they're all going to come and grab you mob-handed. It's easy to think, you know, but by the same token, if you take your dog out for a walk, and somebody has got their dog out, and they haven't got a lead on him, then you just know it's going to run over to your dog, and you're going to be hauling your dog off and trying to save it from being savaged by something with teeth somewhere near, 3/4 of an inch long.
Yeah.
You know, we find ourselves in circumstances we have no intention of being a part of, and because somebody else has got an agenda, what happens to us? Somebody bites us. But I wanted you to know that my hoodie is non-violent. My hooded sweatshirt is pink. It really is. Good to talk to you, Lee. Thanks very much indeed. I've got time for a few more calls here. 08704 20 20 20. 08704 20 20 20. A very interesting piece if you're into football. I'm sure this is the radio station that will be breaking it to you. But the football ace who's been said to be total ballocks has been complaining that he can't live on £130,000 a week, can't afford to buy a house. £130,000 a week. You know, a month's money, he's cracked it, surely. Can't be a problem. The Independent front page, still marked the newspaper of the year, I think merits a read by itself. The war lasted 34 days. It left 1,393 people dead, another 5,350 injured, and more than 1,150,000 displaced, of whom 215,413 are still homeless. The damage amounts to more than $2.6 billion. Exactly 1 month after it ended, a Foreign Office minister admits that Tony Blair should have called for a ceasefire. We were wrong over Lebanon. That's the front page of the Independent. Now let's check the time. It's nearly 13 minutes after 5 o'clock.
talkSPORT Traffic and Travel.
Mary's got the latest for us. Morning, Mary.
Good morning. Southbound on the A1M in County Durham, there's a lane closure due to an accident between junction 63 at Chestler Street and 62 at Carville. A lorry has hit the central reservation. Heading down into Buckinghamshire on the M40 southbound, a lane closure and a hard shoulder closure due to a police incident between junction 4 at the High Wycombe Handy Cross roundabout and 3 at the A40 for Loudwater. Staying in Buckinghamshire on the M1 southbound, 2-lane closure due to a jackknife lorry between Milton Keynes at junction 14 and Bedford at junction 13. 2 lanes of the 3-lane section are closed off, likely to remain in place until 8 a.m. this morning. Now, if you're out and about on the M25 through Essex on the anti-clockwise side, following the accident which happened yesterday morning, the road's closed off for recovery work and emergency repair work between junction 26 at Waltham Abbey and 25 at Enfield. There is a diversion to avoid that closure. Mary Jacobs, talkSPORT Traffic and Travel.
talkSPORT Traffic and Travel.
talkSPORT.
Instant gratification for men.
Keep pushing, that's it.
talkSPORT.
I was reading a piece the other day talking about the remodelling of people who become politicians to make them a great politician. In other words, to give them crowd appeal. In other words, the star quality, the sprinkling of stardust. There was a piece on the front page of this morning's Telegraph, and it said, David Cameron has plundered ideas from the television shows The Dragon's Den and The X Factor in an attempt to spice up this year's Conservative conference. Under the banner A New Direction, Mr Cameron will use his first conference as a leader to transform the annual Seaside Gathering. Do they need to have that? And do they need, to plunder areas of entertainment? It diminishes their importance, I would have thought. Anyway, if you've got some thoughts on it, 08704 20 20 20. Let's talk to Barry, who's in Thirsk. Hello, we were talking about conscription, and I think you've got a couple of thoughts on that, Barry.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about so many issues, I could be on here for hours.
Well, yeah, I tell you what, if you could take over till 6, I'd be eternally grateful.
But I have to say, on this about politicians, they've got to have television appeal, haven't they? And I remember seeing, just a few days ago, a photograph of Gordon Brown, and he had more grey hair than what he's on the television has now. So he's obviously colouring his hair, isn't he?
He was dying to have darker hair, that's what he was doing.
Yeah, so, absolute nonsense. If his television appeal, he's failed abysmally.
You don't think that politicians required to look as good as they can possibly look?
Oh, yeah, I suppose they do. This is the age of the television age, isn't it?
Yes.
And if you're, well, I mean, I'm just trying to think of the Scottish guy who died,
John Smith?
No, the one who divorced his wife. He died not all that long ago. He was in the cabinet and then he resigned, didn't he, over the Gulf War.
Oh yes, I can't remember his name either. God, anyway, tell us what he did. Otherwise, the whole nation will be walking around.
He didn't exactly have appeal, did he, to be the star? That's my view anyway. But yes, on about the and you know, you mentioned about. I know you mentioned so many things like MRSA. Well, the thing is, I mean, I've got severe toothache at the moment. I need to go and get myself there. But the thing is, you know, if you go there, they can't heat treat the surgical instrument to sufficient temperature to get off the, the protein prions on the instruments from possible, you know, BSE or bovine spongiform encephalopathy.
Only you can say that.
Sorry?
Only you can say that.
Well, I can tell you, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus.
You see what I mean?
MRSA.
It's
CJD, but CJD, the human form of BSE, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. I mean, they can't heat treat the instruments, and this is also in hospitals.
So why can't they heat treat them? Is it illegal to take them beyond a certain temperature?
No, there is no way of heat treating to kill off the protein prions. For BSE or the human form CJD, and that's the instruments that are used in dental instruments and hospital surgical instruments. And it is so expensive, you know, where you've got invasive surgery, and the cost is astronomical for the.
Do you? I mean, are you saying this with an insight or a knowledge which is beyond question?
Well, I remember all these facts, you see. I do, and I know that, and I've discussed it with the dentists. And it's a fact. You cannot heat them to such temperature. It's not possible to do so, even when you're sterilizing them for hours. So, even though they were talking about hundreds of thousands possible, we still don't know with CJD. We just don't know what the long-term health situation is, because it takes so long for it to come out. We really don't know. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people possibly being affected by it, and so this is why I have to be so careful with blood transfusions, etc., etc.
Let me float something else past you, because you are one of my regulars in as much as you've always got something to say about most things. A much tougher drink-drive limit for young drivers and a
Totally agree with it.
Hang on a minute.
Sorry.
I'm doing my best work. I mean, I'm not just talking to you, I'm talking to the listener.
The world.
Well, the British Isles, anyway. So, young people are facing tougher drink and smoking laws. In other words, there's a call for tighter under-25 drink-drive limit.
Yes.
And a tobacco ban for under-18s.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem illogical, does it?
No, it doesn't. I totally support it. I mean, it's like in the USA where, well, certainly everywhere I've been in the USA, and I've been there many times, you know, the age for alcohol is 21. I totally support that. I mean, around here in Thurso, you go in any village, I mean, it's out of control any weekend, and with the hours of drinking longer, I mean, it just goes on. They go past my place, and a racket, they're turning, calling vandalism. I mean, it's just there's no end to it. It's absurd. But so there's definitely a call for tighter control. But it's not just that; it's drugs as well, isn't it? You know, we're too soft on the law. We need draconian measures, but this government hasn't got it rhymes with Rolex, you know, to do that.
Do you know, I was looking the other day. Somebody showed me some comics, kids' comics from the UK, and they were dated back to the 50s. And just reading them, there was almost brainwashing in the storylines and the way that the kids reacted to the local policeman and things like that. And it was quite clever. It appeared to be naive and gauche, but it wasn't. And
well, I remember the comics of the 50s. I mean, there was the Eagle that came out, you know, Dan Dare and the Mekong. Do you remember? Well, you won't remember that. You're our age group.
I remember the Mekong Delta in Vietnam.
Yes. I've flown over there when I was in the Air Force.
Now, when you called me and you spoke to George, you said something
about the military.
About RAF training. There's somebody called and said we should consider conscription.
Yes, that's right, and I totally agree with that. And anyone who's been in the force, I'm sure they would agree, because that would sort out a lot of the youth. But I mean, they're so unfit, I think. And
do you think it would? I mean, after all, they come out of it, knowing how to kill someone with a knife.
Well. But it does change people. It gives you a backbone. It really does. But you were saying about 6 weeks training, like basic training. Well, it's much longer than that, actually. We did our training at Bridgenorth in Shropshire.
But that wasn't the army. That wasn't the army, was it?
No, that was the Air Force. But it's the same with the army. You couldn't do the training. It was similar. It was about 11 weeks, and it was about 6 weeks before we could even get off the camp and go into Bridgenorth itself. By what I recall, and I'm sure it was about 11 weeks our basic training, and then you went off to the different departments to learn the job you were going to do, what you chose if you joined up, or what you were allocated if it was national service. Sometimes there wasn't a choice about it.
Well, let's just ask someone who might have done it to give us a call and confirm that the amount of time spent in basic training on 08704 20 20 20.
Yeah. But I have to say, you're talking about having there's all this talk by this government about having a European army. Well, it's not going to work, is it?
Well, we've got a European Union, and we seem to be the only boys out there doing anything about it.
Absolutely. But something else, I don't know whether you're aware of it, or many of your listeners, but the fact is, our munitions now, I don't know whether it's taking place now, but it's all being relocated to France. Now, if they don't agree with the British policy, and we aren't going to be able to get engaged by what I understand in any more wars without the backing of the rest of the EU, well, if they haven't got the guts, they haven't got the backbone, the spineless, like now in the south of Afghanistan, and it's left up to us, and it's our servicemen who are being killed.